there's no wiggle room to talk about ideas outside of this ideological orthodox belief system. The view on race or gender or sexuality, how we're looking at people in terms of our group identity instead of individuals. I mean, every time I go to apply for something, it's like, what are your pronouns with a little asterisk? So you have to put something. It's not optional. I think I can understand Aboriginal, right? But like, why gay people or women? Why do I have to state my sexuality when applying for an arts grant?
Welcome to the New Flesh Podcast, the podcast you deserve. My name is Jonathan Asher. With me is Ricky Allpike, the theatrical Ricky Allpike. Hi, Ricky.
I'm fine and dandy, thanks.
Well, it wasn't just a joke. Like you do have some theatre experience, and so does our guest today. But tell it, what's been your engagement with the theatre? Come claim.
Well, I've worked on a number of theatre shows here in Melbourne as a sound designer and composer. This was pre-COVID. I actually haven't done any theatre post-COVID. And what else do you want to know?
All right. Well, so what do you think of the theatre scene?
Well, the theatre scene is incredibly woke and is intolerable and insufferable. And I think it got worse while I was working in that kind of scene. I worked on a bunch of shows that I really enjoyed working on, and some that just came with a bunch of stuff that was just really annoying, which I'm sure we'll get into today with our guest. But it's gotten so bad that I've stopped going. I used to go to quite a bit of theatre. Every month I'd see a few different things, and I just stopped. It's just so preachy, and it's just you're just getting your talking to all the time. Nothing's transgressive, nothing's dangerous. Nothing goes against the narrative.
Oh no, it sounds like you do need a bit of a talking to by the sounds of it. Maybe they need to talk louder. One of the things that always got me, and I've told you about this before. One of the things I just cannot stand is you see a really mediocre show or with terrible performances, all really preachy and whatever, and then at the end you look around, and there's always a couple of people doing a standing ovation, but you look around and they're doing a very specific type of clapping, the high clapping.
Clapping, yes.
So the hands are clapping, and they're clapping above their head, just forward of the face, above their head, really high.
Yes,
high.
yeah.
And you go, look, this doesn't deserve a golf clap, let alone a high clap.
Yeah, I've been in those situations before where it's like I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, did we just see the same show here? Like, are these all your like is this your family back here?
Some of them do seem like fellow actors.
Yes, that's true. And
they should be banned, by the way. If you're an actor, if you're a fellow actor, you should be banned from seeing the show, because it's a conflict of interest.
Half of the audience would just go like that.
I know. We're on this podcast. Okay, all right. So today's guest is Melody Rachel. I can't wait to talk to her about the theatre. We'll see if we'll bring up any of the stuff we've talked about.
Yeah, we'll see if she's a fan of the high clap. Maybe she's into it. Maybe she does it.
Yep. All right. On with the show.
We always tell you the truth here at the New Flesh Podcast, and the truth is that we need your help. We need you to leave us a rating or a review wherever you listen to the show. We're also on YouTube, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a comment about a show you liked, or perhaps troll some of our haters. Word of mouth is also a very powerful tool, so please tell all of your friends, especially your weird uncle. And finally, to our Uber fans, if you love what we do, you can send us a little cash via the Buy Me a Coffee platform. Any donation here is very much appreciated. And now, on with the show.
Yeah, Ricky, I'm going to cut in on this one. I tell you, I'm going to tell the audience right now, do you know getting reviews on iTunes is harder than mining Bitcoin?
Oh, yeah. It's difficult.
It's honestly one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like, you say this fucking thing every week, and I check the reviews,
Nothing.
And there's one person who had the gall to give us a decent review. And then I look at the stars. They said, oh, yeah, decent show or whatever. And I look at the stars, 3 stars.
Yeah, that is strange.
What a bastard.
Yeah. I know some people think that maybe they have a different opinion on what's a good score. Like maybe 5 for them is like I don't know, pull the car over, stop what you're doing. I don't know, like
I don't even give Uber drivers 3 stars. Even the ones that have almost like got us into accidents. I feel sorry for them. Like, and you should feel sorry for
yeah.
us. So give us a review and give us stars. Okay? Thank you.
I'll get out my tiny violin.
Yeah. Play on.
Melody Rachel is a theatre maker, producer, and podcaster. She has an upcoming show in the Sydney Fringe Festival, which is called Demo. Her podcast is called You Know I, and you can find it on YouTube and everywhere. You can find it on YouTube and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Melody, welcome to the New Flesh.
What's up?
I want Ricky to keep that in, by the way. He screwed up that bio, that tiny little bio. I'm saying this now so he cannot edit it out. Okay?
I'm pretty tricky. I can cut around it.
I think you probably can.
Who just edited out you saying that?
I know. It's like trying to argue with the artist drawing.
You're creating more work for me. Stop it.
All right. Well, Melody, welcome to the show. I don't know where to start really. First things, Ricky and I were talking before the show because you're in the theatre. Can you explain this one to me? And this has plagued me for the longest time. So you do your show, and the audience, it's probably the opening night or something, and the audience does their clapping, and then there's usually a group of spirited young things. They do a certain type of clapping. It's not just this. It's above the head and forward of the face. It's this high clapping. Have you ever seen this? And they usually
like a standing ovation kind of clap.
Well, they could be standing, but it's kind of like oh, and it's like, and then maybe a shake of their head.
Yeah, they're ecstatic.
They're ecstatic, and I have a sneaking suspicion that they might be fellow actors.
Yes.
Is this a type of actor clap?
I think so. I mean, I think we all, as artists, we all know how the other artist enjoys an applause, so we probably really amplify it up.
Like it's not the boomers never do that. The boomers don't do that high clap,
Nah, they don't even clap.
No, they fall asleep. They
cough during.
Maybe that's just from my theatre.
They're the ones who are usually coughing throughout the entire show.
Yes.
But don't you think the actors and the production need some honest feedback? That's kind of misrepresenting in some cases could be misrepresenting the show.
I mean, look, I've never not received a clap from fellow actors, but that might have something to do with the kind of art I make. but like, I think it comes after. Do you know what I mean? Like, your skin is not thick right after the performance, right? And even if you didn't enjoy the production as a whole, if you only liked a bit of it, I think I made a really garbage show last year, and this director that came to it that I really admired, she just said to me at the end, she was like, oh, I just really loved your work with the audience, because I did a bit of work with the audience, but I'm like, yeah, the show was garbage, but like, you're not going to say that, right? After the show. And maybe it's just a politeness thing. Like
that's good. That's good feedback though, because they were honest and they provided you a good. They said you made a good contribution in this part of the show. That's honest, and you both knew what was going on in the moment. Whereas when someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, darling," the hair, that does 2 air kisses either side and says, "That was the best thing I've ever seen." And
that was great. What was great about it? Yeah, there is definitely a bit of fakeness about it, I guess.
The other hard thing is when someone who's put on the show, maybe you or someone else, and their friends have come to see it, and you ask them straight away, what did you think of the show? Like directly after they've seen it, before they can process it and think about it. And that's when they kind of stammer and don't know what to say. And, that can be a bit disheartening too.
Oh, it was good. Well, it's sort of like asking how someone is, right? How are you? Oh, I'm great. Like it's just this automatic response thing.
Yeah. Well, I once went to a show at the Malt House. Now, what was it called, John? I think you saw this too. It was about Mary Magdalene, I think. What was?
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Yeah. What was that called again? That was called the something of Mary. Anyway,
didn't that have Pamela Rabe in it?
Yeah, someone big. And it was a one-woman show. And there was a guy in front of me who literally fell asleep and was snoring like the loudest you've ever heard. and the show was boring.
Was he a boomer?
Well, probably. Yeah, he was old enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was that way inclined. But she's such a pro. I think she incorporated it, didn't she? And she sort of acknowledged it at one point.
No, I don't think so. Did she?
I made that up in my head. Well, so
You can cut that bit out.
cut that bit out. So, Melody, so much to cover today. The first question I have is, have you experienced any racism in Australia? Because, you know, you're a bit Kiwi in that.
You guys are funny. In Australia, well, I've only been here for 2 years.
So no one ever says go back home or anything.
Go back home. Nah. Shit, man. I was
Just
not
don't do it,
expecting that question.
You'll be right. But seriously, just don't do any crimes, because that
Racism. Have I
we
experienced?
do send people back to. We don't care if you were literally a baby. We will send you back to New Zealand, like for the slightest thing.
You know, I probably experience it when I go back home to see my friends. They're like, "Oh, you sound like an Aussie. You're one of them now," because I got a bit of a twang in my voice. But nah, I'm privileged.
Well, perhaps you could give us an insight into your background. You know, what's your story? You know, why are you in Australia?
Yeah, so I mean, the economy is a lot better over here, I guess, and it's just a Kiwi thing, right? Kiwis move to Australia. Australians don't go to New Zealand. But I actually started making theatre in Australia. So I lied when I said I'd only been here for 2 years. I was here for 4 years, and then I went back to New Zealand for the pandemic, and then I moved over here again 2 years
Wow.
ago. So 6 years with a 2-year break.
So were you resigned to leave New Zealand when you were here before the pandemic? Were you sort of like, I'm here in Australia, and then you sort of had to go back?
I was actually going back to take a theatre show back to New Zealand.
Oh,
And then just by chance, the pandemic hit like 2 weeks after I closed, and I was like, I guess I'm going to stay here then. And
Trapped.
2 years later.
wow.
Yeah. Well, you would have been trapped here. I mean, it's almost the same experience, right?
Yeah, well, we had a hard and fast lockdown, but then we had like freedom. Like we were clubbing when you guys were still sitting down at clubs, you know what I mean? So I probably got the best version of it. And then I left. I think I left during that, like the last lockdown, which was like 4 months. Came over here, and here we are. But yeah, ever since I've been in Australia, like this is where I've been making solo theatre work. So when I was a bit younger, I had a dream of being an actor, as you do, and then I did some acting classes, and I tried the on-screen stuff. I tried ensemble work, which is like group work, community theatre. But when I was 25, I created my first one-woman theatre show, and ever since then, I've made one solo theatre show a year. So I'm 30 now, so I've made five theatre shows, and that's where my passion is.
Oh,
and the
wow. So
solo
you sort
work.
of found there's some. Well, the question is, what is it about that format, the one woman format, that you like?
Well, I really like. It's kind of like stand-up comedy in a way, stand-up comedy / like performance art and dance. But to be honest, I think it's just easier. I make autobiographical work, so I'm telling my own story. So who better to tell my own story than me? And I love connecting with people, and I love banter with the audience. A lot of my shows involve sort of audience interaction. So it's just, I guess theatre is a tool to connect with people. So who better to do it than me, the artiste?
And one thing you're avoiding those shitty rehearsals where that one actor who always comes dressed in like a tracksuit with holes in it and looks kind of homeless, who rocks up late and does this one, hey, when they walk into the room, you know, and then everyone goes, hey.
Yeah, you know what? I think I worked with.
We weren't waiting an hour for you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't have to rely on other people. I don't have to worry about whether I don't like other people's ideas or whether they don't like mine. It's just a one-woman show all around.
Well, there's lots I want to get into about the theatre, but I think maybe we should cover some more of the personal stuff first, maybe.
Oh,
Because we could
personal.
go, because one of the, and this is all part of your show. I think this year. Well, I think we should get you to talk about your show, perhaps. Because am I correct in your new show Demo that is there a faith component in your show?
A lot of my work, yeah, the theme is around identity. So yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm also a lesbian. So
Mhm.
for the last 5
What's
years,
that? We don't hear that. I don't
you
hear
don't
that
hear it
much.
anymore. A
Yeah,
lesbian, right? It's queer. Yeah,
lesbian.
but the new word is queer, right?
Yeah.
I challenged that in my last show, but no, I'm not down with that. I'm a lesbian or gay. Maybe I'll just say gay. Um, and I have a relationship with Jesus, and trying to reconcile those two, but also draw some parallels between my experience, because I grew up in more of a conservative sort of Christian household, and there's a sort of a set of rules, and it's a belief system, right? Homosexuality is a sin. Go to church on Sunday. Don't drink. Save sex for marriage. Jesus is savior, right? This belief system that I was brought up with, and then going into the theater world, and I only realized this has only happened in the last kind of few years, because the theater world's always been sort of politically correct, right? Or the new word is woke, social justice, all those buzzwords, right? But and some even say the religion of social justice. So there's this belief system that comes in the arts. So this new view of gender, right? So trans women are women. You have a gender identity. We look at people in terms of our group identities. So if you're a straight white cis man, you're scum of the earth. If you're a black trans woman, you deserve this opportunity over this person. So I noticed this in the last few years, and I was like, oh, this is really religious. This is like what my upbringing was like, and sort of trying to exist in both of these communities, and even finding Jesus when I was 25. So I'm still Christian, right? But just a different kind of Christian than the ones I grew up with. More of a spiritual kind of Christian, but existing in both of these communities, it's alienating and it's polarizing, and it's this wrestle. And then also trying to look at myself and thinking, I'm feeling polarized by other people, but also, am I polarizing myself?
The question in there is that came to me. You just said when you were 25. So how did you come to Jesus?
Okay. So I met, it sounds very Christian. I met Jesus. What the fuck does that mean?
Well, I think it means no. I think that's a hedge, and I think that means exactly what you said it means. And so how?
Jesus. Yeah, I'll explain it. So, I kind of hit rock bottom when I was 25. My life wasn't going great. I have this weird thing about belief because, I grew up in Christianity, right? So I always knew it existed, but I just wasn't following it. I always sort of had this internal knowing of like, Jesus does exist, but I'm gay. And my whole life I've been told, well, you can't be gay and Christian. That's a sin, right? So why the fuck would I want to follow this dude or go into church buildings where I'm told I'm a sinner, essentially, or what I'm doing is wrong, or loving people of the same sex is wrong. But yeah, when I was 25, I hit rock bottom, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to start going to church. And yeah, I went to Hillsong Church, right? And I was going, and I stopped drinking, right? Here's me thinking, oh, this is what Christians do. They stop drinking, stop having sex, stop doing drugs. So I did all that, and I was going to church, and it was like 3 months of just going to church and not drinking, not living the quote unquote worldly lifestyle, right? And I was in church, and I just remember singing along to one of the worship songs, and it was like, "How great are you, God?" right? Everyone sings, "Oh God, you're so great. You're so great." And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, you're not great. I don't even know you. Like, I'm at church just singing a song about Jesus, and I'm like, but I don't even know you. And that's when it became less about going to church on Sunday and more about or following like a belief system and a doctrine and more personal. So being a Christian to me, or meeting Jesus, actually means having his spirit dwelling within me. And about a year later, I started sleeping with girls again, right? Because I'm a lesbian. um, and I thought that would separate me from Jesus, or like I wasn't a Christian or something if I have sex with girls. But I just remember praying, and whether it was in my spirit or it wasn't an audible voice, it was just something in me just said, "I know you." And I just had this experience, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm having sex with women, but I know Jesus." And then just my whole perspective on Christianity changed. And I was like, you can actually be gay and be Christian. Like, there's debate about whether homosexuality is a sin or not, but being a Christian is just having the Spirit of God dwelling within you. That's what I mean when I say relationship with Jesus or met with Jesus. I don't mean I met the ghost of Jesus, right? Like, he died on the cross so we could have his Holy Spirit in us. So it says all this in the Bible, right? And it just blew my fucking mind. So, and it's still being condemned, and still to this day, like, existing in the church. Yeah, like, you're condemned. You're told, oh, you're a sinner. But it's like, once you have that relationship with Jesus, it actually doesn't matter what Christians say or people in the church building say, because you're already accepted by Jesus, if that makes sense. I don't know if he, like, and this is what I'm on the fence about, so I don't actually fit in with the progressive Christian community either, because they're like, no, God affirms my sexuality. Like, I don't know. All I know is that I have a relationship with Jesus and I have sex with women. So there's the proof.
A lot of non-faith people, non-Christian people who don't know much about Christianity, they would see, that it's impossible to be lesbian and to be a Christian. But doesn't Christianity teach that we're all sinners, and that this is, that the tenets of the Bible is something that we're supposed to aspire to, and something that's supposed to guide us and try, and we're trying to aspire to be as good as we can be, but we're always going to sin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, whether it's a sin or not, like, yeah, it says some shit in the Bible. It's got these vice lists, right? Like, don't be greedy, gluttonous, sexual immorality, homosexuality. Like, there's a debate whether the word homosexuality got put into the Bible in 1946. Like, there's movies about it. Theologians do all this kind of work. But for me, it's just like, being a Christian is, yeah, like you said, having the Holy Spirit within you, convicting you of sin. Like, that's the Christian life. And when I think about it, I'm like, fuck, there's like so much worse in me than being gay. So that should be the least of anyone's worries.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of you mentioned it before, the progressive sort of sect within the church, which probably arguably is quite was that the majority now, like that the progressive wing?
Progressive queer Christians,
Did
they
you-
call
did-
themselves
Yeah.
queer.
I'm thinking of like the whole movement. Like, so I guess the most acute version would be the pictures you see of the priests with the rainbow flag, or not even the progressive flag cloth,
Yeah.
and like they're all in, and
Well, some claim that Jesus was non-binary now. I've seen that.
Of course he was.
Well, I mean, technically he's old mate Jesus, like the dude that lived on the earth. I think he was a dude, but the Holy Spirit, right? The thing that we when we say we have a relationship with Jesus, that's what we mean. We mean the Spirit. I guess there is no gender, right? But I still use like he pronouns.
But when he was in the human form, he was a man,
Yeah, he was a dude. Yeah.
an adult male human.
I mean, look, this is my thing, right? Like, people are getting caught up on that. Just sounds political to me. But I suppose gay Christianity is
because we said it a second ago, like the beauty of him of the most wonderful thing about Jesus, and I know nothing, by the way. Let's just get that out of the way right now. But the most wonderful thing for me is the idea that it's the human part. It's not the man part. It's the human part, and it's that he had to deal with that Jesus had to deal with the horrors and the joys of being human, and the limitations of being human, and the temptations and all of that stuff. Isn't that the more important
you
thing
do know
rather
a lot.
than no?
I mean, no, you do. But the idea is, he was a dude, a sinless dude. I mean, the doctrine goes he took the punishment for the sin that we deserve. I mean, sorry, he took the punishment for sin, the punishment that we deserve, which I can't fully comprehend. But I don't think any Christian can. And I think it's just a journey on trying to comprehend what actually happened. But back to your question about progressive Christians, I've interviewed one, and this is just one guy, but he's revised the Bible, like he's revised his spirituality so much that it almost seems unbiblical. Like, he doesn't believe in the concept of sin, that we're sinners. He believes that God affirmed his gayness, like all these. He doesn't believe in objective truth. So I'm just like, you've got these fundamentalists on one end, right? They take the Bible so literally, and they're like, fornication, no sex before marriage. These are fornication is the worst sin. Homosexuality, nah, you can't be gay and Christian. You can't do this. Some of them even think they're not sinners anymore. And I'm like, bro, and then on the other side, you have these, hyper progressive queer Christians who I don't even know what they're following. Like, none of what they say is in the it's
pagan rituals.
But I want to know what the truth is.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's all in the Bible. It's just our understanding of it can sometimes be distorted. Like, I think there is one truth, and people change the truth to suit themselves. Where I'm like, what is the truth? Like, what is it? And that's, we've got the spirit of truth within us. That's what we believe.
Well, I love that we can talk about this topic on the show. We've talked about Christianity and faith with a bunch of different guests, but today, if you were to do that on a more mainstream platform like ABC's Q&A,
ABC.
you get laughed off
Imagine
stage.
ABC. Imagine just having a car. Like, everyone's trained to have to speak in a certain way about their faith. Well, not all faiths on ABC. There's a couple of faiths that you can speak very openly about, but
That's true.
Christianity is not one of them, fortunately.
Well, I was actually at a comedy show last night, and this girl read from this. She made this Bible, and she's like, "Is anyone here a Christian?" And everyone just laughed. It's really not cool.
But that's so nasty as well. I don't understand. Why would you we live in let's face it. I mean, in the West, secularism has, for better or worse, has won. Okay, so you've won. Why would you be a sore winner? Why have I got to sit there in all these shows? Like there was a time, not that long ago, actually, a couple of decades ago, where the religious right was trying to ban Marilyn Manson and whatever, and you could sort of mock and ridicule them. But now,
I kind of miss those days.
I
Now
absolutely miss them.
They should be banning Drag Queen Story Hour.
Right? Oh, I can't say that.
Yes, so we have some questions about that later.
Oh.
Actually, we should.
Bit that I might need you to cut out. No.
Before we get too far down the rabbit hole, we should transition into your show, because this is part of your show, the Faith. So tell us about your Fringe show.
Yeah, my Fringe show in 3 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks by the time you release this episode. 19th of September. I'll just give the date. I'm responding to, like I said before, the feeling of alienation, being a lesbian and knowing Jesus, and also this concept of sin. So I'm not forming. I wouldn't say the show is about. It's not about Christianity. it's responding to it. So whatever I end up creating, it might not even be about Christianity. It's just a response. But yeah, it's a response to these doctrines, set of beliefs from what I've been told by Christianity, and then also the LGBT community and the arts community. So I think I'm responding to belief systems and feelings of alienation, polarization, and I think I want to find our common humanity in all this. Like, what is it that unites us? I know what polarizes us, but what unites us? And I'm exploring that. I'm exploring that in the work. Yeah.
So why don't you call the show hashtag All Lives Matter? Isn't that a good title? I'm trying to help you, Melly. Just call it All Lives Matter.
Maybe I should, but maybe I'd get cancelled. It is the arts that we're talking about here. But they say what is that saying?
There's no bad
publicity.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, but some practical things though, because when people think about, because some people might be coming to your show in Sydney, is it? What's the format here? Is it how does it go for? Is it in the round? Is it outdoors? Is it indoors? Like what am I expecting?
The reason I'm not giving you much information is I'm still making it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You're like, so what's the show about? I'm like, here. So
I'm still trying to figure it out, man. So it's 50 minutes solo show. It's just me. It's called Demo because I'm using the form of protest. So I'm interested in this idea of protest. So you will see that in the show. So whatever comes to your mind when you think protest.
Pussy hats.
Yeah. Whatever that's in the show. So it's just me. It's solo. There will be some audience interaction. It's in Erskineville. For those who know Sydney, that's the suburb over from Newtown. Yeah, 19th of September.
We know Newtown.
Oh, you do? Which one of you is from
I live in Sydney.
Okay.
I'll
send you some tickets.
Please do.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll definitely come on. Bring my wife. We like a night out.
Yeah.
Well, sort of, we're talking about faith and sort of, religion, and one thing I see is sort of a stand-in for a religion or something that's almost like a religious ritual is the Aboriginal acknowledgement.
Oh yes.
And you mentioned to us prior to this interview that the Sydney Fringe Festival is requesting that you play a pre-recorded Indigenous acknowledgement before your show.
Requesting?
Yeah, requesting or requiring. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts
requesting,
on this?
So that's probably one underneath requiring, right? But it's almost synonymous. Yeah, I mean, it's even got the didgeridoo in it. I mean, it's not the worst. I listened to it. So usually acknowledgements of country are pretty standard now in Australia, like even on Jetstar flights and stuff. The arts will take it a step further by adding in always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Sovereignty was never ceded. Yeah, we're all on stolen land. You don't get that on the Jetstar flights. But no, the pre-recorded one is just the standard. And I'm umming and ahhing about it because I personally believe it's kind of like, and this might change in a week or something, but right now it feels like lip service. Like if I'm not doing anything to help uplift Aboriginal people, what's the point in doing a land acknowledgement? Or is that the least I could do since I'm not doing anything?
Are you allowed to suggest something else? So what if you instead got up and said, we're not going to do that and we're going to make a donation to an Indigenous charity, or you're going to volunteer somewhere, or just tell people to give their time somewhere or something?
That's probably a better idea. But now I'm wondering, if I do that, am I posturing? Very, very self-analytical.
Well, no, but this is an issue. This is an important issue. I can maybe, give you a couple of examples from our two very divergent examples from our podcast. So, because this comes up a lot.
Okay.
So maybe should I give the high octane one first, Ricky?
Go for it.
All right. Well, now this is from Jason D. Hill, a conservative thinker. On his argument on land acknowledgements, and this is what he would say. He doesn't believe in them because he says that, this is his language, he says that there was a land war and you're a conquered people, and through a range of treaties and bartering and resource, it was a fight for resources, and you lost, and this is where it's at. Okay, so there is no such thing. This is not stolen land. So this is where it's at. That's what he would say. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, on the far left, former Maoist Norman Finkelstein says of land acknowledgements. I informed him that I received a book of his that had a land acknowledgement bookmark that came with it. Just in case I ever needed to just read it out by myself wherever I was, and which I might do. And I said that I told him this, and he said at one point he gave a great analogy. He said of land acknowledgements, he said that we should cut the shit and get on with important things. And his point is, there's no excuse for stolen land. Don't go there. He goes, don't go there. If you believe, because if the land was stolen and you're on there and you're and so there's no apology. Just don't go there. So if you 100% believe that you are on stolen land, don't perform there, for instance. So if you believe it, if you believe 100% in everything that's being said, then there's no apology to be made. It's like, just don't go. We can't go to the land. Like, we either give it back, pay rent, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go back to New Zealand.
Yeah, go back to New Zealand. Oh, that's stolen too. Go back to the fucking UK.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very. You don't have to respond directly to those things. But what do you think?
I think it's interesting. I think they both seem to be saying, well, they both are saying, don't acknowledge the land, right?
Well,
as in the guy on the left, like, don't do a land acknowledgement, don't go there, and then the conservative guy's like, well, don't do a land acknowledgement, it's stupid. So they're both saying don't
do lip service is what they're saying. Yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation with someone about this the other day in the arts. I mean, because I'm linking it all to fucking everything, like even the pronouns and the email signatures, right? And you're introducing, we introduce each other with our pronouns and the arts, right? We go around in a little pronoun circle. So I'm just like this whole thing, I'm merging it all together. But she's like, nah, that's different. It's different. But it's you get these kids in the arts like fucking walking around with this, they're living on stolen land merchandise. Like these white people with these hats saying always was Aboriginal land. You got these people wearing shirts like arts,
all made in China, I'm sure.
In artist bios,
Uyghurs.
I am like a queer artist.
Yeah.
Living and working on stolen land. I'm making my theatre on stolen land. Like, it just.
What are you doing about it then?
Very disingenuous to me.
Honestly,
And I'm like,
give it back. Honestly, like, don't go
right?
there. Don't, like, smash it up. Let's smash it all up. Like, and I'm not being facetious. I think the only honest way you can do this, if you say the words, you need to do something about it. And I don't even know where I stand anymore. But I know that, like, the Malthouse Theatre getting up and saying all this crap, if they believed it, smash it up and give it back. Honestly, like what's wrong with that? Isn't that the most awesome thing you can do? If you 100% believe it, what are you really saying? He says, and Norman Finkelstein's great example was, he goes, so now try and help me out here, Ricky. Didn't he say that, like, if you evict, you evict?
Yeah, if your best friend got evicted from, or if you knew someone who was evicted from a house, and then your friend ended up, living in that house later on, you wouldn't not visit that house because someone was evicted and now your friend is in there. I mean, you would still go and have dinner with him in his house. You wouldn't walk around and go, what are you doing on this? This is stolen property or whatever.
No, I thought his example was more like he goes, if you were, coming over and giving you're living in the house now, and then inviting the former occupant over to the house, and then
do an acknowledgement,
getting them to sit at the table,
yes.
and then you doing an acknowledgement that it used to be theirs, is insufficient. It's not appropriate and insufficient. So when you put it in those terms, it makes these. And the arts community seems to be so riven with this hypocrisy, and they're so limp-wristed about this. They're such wimps. Do something about it. I'm excited. Do something about it. Smash it up. Destroy it. Let's do it.
Well, I'm yet to meet someone in the arts who's actually gone to a remote community and actually seen what it's like out there, or volunteered, or even travelled out there. It's always people
or just
in
any
inner city.
activist. Well, most of them. I mean, and back to religion. It's maybe this is my own thing, but growing up in religion, but it's like, saying a nice prayer at the dinner table, but then treating you like garbage. That's what most activists do. Hashtag, what are your pronouns? Black Lives Matter, land acknowledgement, but they're assholes.
Anyway, I got you docked last night, like they lead a horrible hate campaign against you, these activists, but they're saying be kind on the other hand.
Yeah. We're inclusive, but we'll exclude you if you don't agree with us.
Yeah.
Seems to be the way.
I don't think I've ever heard an acknowledgement in the presence of an Indigenous person either, which is kind of weird. It's always just white people standing around doing these acknowledgements, and the biggest problem I have with them is they're just so boring, smoking ceremonies, welcome to country, the whole deal. They're just a snooze fest, I want some entertainment. I want some pizzazz, some tap dancing perhaps.
Yeah.
John, you'd be into that. You like a bit of tap.
I like a bit of tap.
Oh my God, this is so fucking dangerous. One more thing. I just, I don't know, but I suppose I don't know. Why not just go along with it? It's customary. Everyone's doing it. Well, why should I even question this? But 30-second thing.
But to be serious, I actually think this is a very divisive thing. That sticker that says always was, always will be. I think that's the other side of those coins you see on utes that say fuck off, we're full. Basically you're saying that this is not your land. It will never be your land. It's Aboriginal land, and you should go away. And it's like John said. I mean, if you truly believe that, whatever your heritage was, you should go back there. If you're from somewhere in Europe, you should go there.
Is that just your interpretation of it, though? Because I'm just trying to challenge you here. Like that seems to be what conservatives say. Like, that's how you're reading it. And I think I read it like that. But
yeah, it's a very closed statement. Always was, always will be. So there's no way forward so that we can get past the Indigenous people and others. There's no way we can come together and all be Australian. That's what it's saying.
Forgiveness.
But what about the land acknowledgement that doesn't have always was, will be, always was, always will be, sovereignty was never ceded? Because there's the land acknowledgement that just stops as past, present, and future. We would like to acknowledge. I don't even know it. It's so bad.
That's one of the problems too. Is that we've never sat down and gone, this is what we're doing, and it's constantly evolving. And different organisations put their own spin on it. They add things, they take things out. Like you're talking about the mild version, but it's constantly evolving, and there's no one that's kind of sitting there, asking the question like,
imagine
who's coming up with this,
giving notes. Imagine giving notes on the Welcome Country. I don't think there's been one note session on a Welcome to Country ever, by the way. But the problem is, and I know we'll get off this radioactive topic in about 2 seconds, but the problem is that this is tied up with government. And you know what? I read. We've been joking around a little bit, but Indigenous history is absolutely fascinating and beautiful. And when I read this book by Thomas Keneally about Australia, and he begins, with an Indigenous history at the beginning, and it was just amazing. And I read it, and I was engaged, and I was like, man, you know what? We don't get any of this really great, earnest history. What we get is pro forma, sort of government mandated nonsense, and that's why that's when Ricky says it's boring. It's because it's like being at primary school. Like we're just saying the words, we're all falling asleep. It's not. It's the exact opposite of being engaged with someone's culture. And I don't know how we fix that. And the problem is that the arts is I mean, why is this issue, just like all the other social justice, why is the arts? I mean, there's a lot of things I want to say here, but shouldn't they be? Why don't you just make a fucking show about it? Why don't you make a show about it? Why don't you write a book about it? Why don't you do some drama about it? Why don't you tell a story about it? Why have you got to get up? Do you know the dumbest thing you can do is tell, don't show. That is the dumbest thing you can do in the arts. And why is the arts in love with that? They like all of the instructions and all of the trigger warnings and all of the things that are getting me ready for it. And then I get in there and go, oh, for God's sakes, just let me get the Chekhov play. It's been around for 100 years. Just let me enjoy it. Shut up.
I'm still trying to work that out, especially with the trigger warnings, right? But I think there's a good intention, but like let's like disability access, right? We never did any of that 5 or 10 years ago, right? We didn't care, so it's like, oh no, let's really put like access, what is it, access requirements on the event. Like, let's make sure we are including this group of people, or let's make sure we're um what's another thing, like they just overcorrect though, right?
Mm.
Like, let's start celebrating bigger bodies, right? Like, yeah, I like a fat chick, like, a voluptuous girl, like we're no, but it's like
Clip that up.
it's
It's
I
going to be
like
the
a fat chick. But it's just a response to this, I don't know, more conservative traditional society that just didn't allow for any of this. But it's just, Douglas Murray talks about it. I'm sure you're familiar with Douglas Murray, the train that's just about to pull into the station, and then it just like zooms off out of course and just smashes. So instead of celebrating, but we're celebrating obesity now.
This is so frustrating, Melody,
It's
because just do a good show.
Yeah.
Just do a good show. I don't, the arts community, and maybe we can transition into arts in Australia, because I think there's a massive problem with the arts, and I suspect you might have your own issues as well. We'd love to hear about them, but all of this just seems like how much of the meeting do these people spend? The middle and the upper management of these arts organizations, how much time do they spend talking about all of the accessibility stuff? Look, you've got a problem on the stage. Forget how people get there. No one's going to want to get there with the stuff I've seen in the last few years. I'll give you the tip, and this goes right up to the top. I've seen the most dreadful big budget Shakespeare productions, mired with all sorts of problems, miscasting, token casting, which has destroyed the whole thing, because and which has probably damaged that poor actor's career because they weren't ready for that particular stage or something. I mean, there's so many issues, and here we are, trying to get everyone in. I mean, what's your take? What do you think the state of the arts is in Australia?
I just think, I think there's there's lots of different subcultures in the arts, right? So there's the big productions at the Opera House and whatnot. But in smaller arts communities, yeah, there is a big focus on, well, it's like radically left wing political, right? Like it's very, there's no wiggle room to talk about ideas outside of this ideological orthodox belief system. So I said some of this before, right? The view on race or gender or sexuality, how we're looking at people in terms of our group identity instead of individuals. I mean, every time I go to apply for something, it's like, what are your pronouns, with a little asterisk? So you have to put something. It's not optional anymore. You have to state what your pronouns are. Like, I usually just put a full stop. It's just or we encourage. I think I can understand. We encourage people. I think I can understand Aboriginal, right? But like, why gay people or women? Like, why do I have to state my sexuality when applying for an arts grant? Maybe 30, 40 years ago, or my gender, whether I'm male or female, like, why? Those are the issues that I'm struggling with, that we're not looking at. It's not a meritocracy anymore, and it can't fully be, right? Like, we've got to give people like opportunity. There was one theater that they did it on experience. So they would program a year, and then they would have like 4 stages, like inexperienced artists, and then sort of mid career artists, and that, like, they would share it around. That's a great way to share it around, right? We can't just have the experienced people in. Like, we need to give people an opportunity. But when it's like, oh, we want a woman, and then it's or gay people, like, it's just straight white men need not apply. That's the issue. And then the political ideology, like the only politics that are acceptable in the arts is this sort of man-hating feminism, this weird view of gender, that we've got. You're not gender nonconformity is not a natural variation of sex. It's now completely disconnected. Like you're not if you're gender nonconforming, you're just not a woman anymore. I quite often get asked, what are your pronouns and like, what do you, and I actually got lambasted a couple of years ago by the people I was working with. I created a show called I Want to Be Mark Wahlberg. And it was about feeling disconnected from my identity as a woman because I didn't fit feminine stereotypes. I've, being called a man when I was younger, or being called a beast, or even today, like I work with kids and they're like, are you a girl or a boy? Because I dress a bit boyish, right? It's all those experiences can make you sort of feel like less worthy of womanhood. So what I was interested in doing is expanding the box of womanhood, which has already sort of been done, but it's like we're reversing it now.
Maybe you just need to transition. I don't see
Yeah.
Yeah, but I ended up mentioning a feminist. I'm sure you're familiar with her. Her name's Germaine Greer.
Oh, yes.
And
Bigot.
transphobe, perf, hateful woman. Yeah. Probably wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for her and, many contributors. But yeah, told that we don't want to work with you unless we politically align. So it's like, again, why do I make solo work? Probably because I don't politically align with anyone in the arts. Like,
that's what I was getting at the
how
beginning.
fucked is that?
When you said why have you been drawn to the one woman show, that that's the real sticking point, isn't it? That you have to, because the sort of feeling out you have to do of people to figure out where they're at and whether they'll accept your heterodox or unorthodox point of view in the arts is too difficult.
It's only people in the arts that care. It's like, okay, we've got a different view of gender. It's like, oh, no, we can't work together. Man, I hang out with people that think homosexuality is a sin. Like, I'm really good friends with some people that, I mean, obviously they don't say it to my face. Like, it's how they treat me. We have a different view. We have a different theology, but we treat each other like human beings. In the arts, it doesn't fucking matter. If I don't think that, if I don't think trans women are women, just how I treat people doesn't matter.
Can you just whisper that? Sort of half. No, we can still hear you. You can't swallow it.
But if I don't believe that, I am privileged because I'm white, or I'm, I actually, on that, I do believe I am privileged because I'm white, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's all these other privileges. Or I don't believe men have it better than me, or I don't believe I'm marginalized because I'm gay, or it's about your beliefs. It's not about how we treat each other. It's like you can have all the right beliefs, but treat people like garbage and you're just elevated. It's insane.
Well, that example you told of sort of that tiered system where shows were like categorized as like you're an emerging artist or something, and you're mid level or advanced or whatever. I think that's really good because it cuts across race, it cuts across gender. I guess maybe it's more about what stage of life you're in and what experience you have, and it's more individualistic in that way. So I quite like that idea, but something that John has brought up a couple of times is a quote, and John, you have to correct, tell me who this was from. I can't remember, but you were saying that if you can tell the politics of a film or a piece of cinema, it's not a good piece of cinema. Like you want to leave that cinema not knowing what the politics of the director was or the story. I mean, John, where does that quote come from?
I forget now. I heard it recently, and I think it's gorgeous. And it, to me, it should be all mixed up. Like if you're telling political art, because the thing is, because people go, "Oh, art's always been political," and you go, "Yeah," but at the end of like Oliver Stone, who's very, very political, he has said out of his own mouth, "Yeah, I'm a dramatist." So he's a dramatist. So and my wife's in the game as well, and she has said to people now outright to writers that she's hiring and whatever, and she says, I want writers, I want artists, not activists, or I want dramatists, not activists. Because this is the only political philosophy you need to have in the arts. You need to think of the audience. Remember them? Remember the audience? they never talk about the audience in the arts, especially in Australia. They never, ever talk about the audience. Think about that. Think of the narcissism of that. This is show business. It's the audience. You got a really clear job. You're a dramatist, not an activist. If you're an activist, you are compromised, and we can always tell. We can always tell, because if you need to tell the truth, just like Gavin McGuinness just said in our podcast, he said, tell the truth even when it's difficult. And that's what the truth is. And that's why when you see a movie or read a book or see a play or whatever that unwaveringly tells the truth, where it hurts, it kills you, like Sophie's Choice, right? It just kills you. It just goes, yeah, this is how it would play out. Or I think you could think of anything, like, anything that Lars von Trier's ever done. You know what I mean? Like, he just goes there. He just says, yep, this is how it'll play out, or whatever. Whereas if you are political, then you will, when it suits you, you will come to the T-junction, and rather than do what's right for the story, rather than what's right for the characters, you will take a left turn, and you'll go, well, and no pun intended, and you will go, oh, isn't collectivism great? Isn't Hillary Clinton great? Isn't she a boss bitch? Aren't boss bitches great? And then everyone's like, wait, what? Like, so what are you doing? So, and I mean, what's your take on some of that, Melanie?
Well, it's interesting what you're saying. Again, it just reminds me we're just regurgitating ideas back to each other. Because the art world that I'm in, I'm not sure if you're familiar with performance art or contemporary performance, or I guess theater, but not like plays, like I don't know how to, like, live art theater. Do you know what I mean? Like the consumers of that kind of theater are just other artists.
Yeah,
like 80% of your audience in those spaces is just other artists, and you're just regurgitating your ideas back to each other. I'm trying to shift now to stand-up comedy, because I just think it's much more accessible. You can be anywhere on the, within reason, I guess. But and you'll have different audiences at different venues, and people will know you. But it's just like, if you're going to a live art show and you're watching two women kind of get naked and like striptease to say fuck the patriarchy.
Tell me more.
No, but it's like, I'm a fucking lesbian. Like, if I wanted to watch a porno or go to a strip club, like, I would just do that. You're not even acknowledging biology here. Like, it's again a weird way of thinking. Like, I should be able to rub my tits, I should be able to get naked, and if you get turned on, that's because we live in a patriarchal society that denigrates women's bodies. And I'm like, bro,
I never get put in my place that way. What show is this? Like, the ones where we get out.
I'll send you the link. You can book tickets later.
That sounds like a good show.
Yeah, like it is. It is just regurgitating. We are regurgitating ideas.
And what do you think about this idea? Because now you don't have to get yourself in any more trouble than you've already got yourself into. Yeah, I bet you're regretting you came on the show. But we had a bit of a flip through some of the offerings at the Fringe, and I'm not here to denigrate anyone's particular show. Everyone's it takes a lot of courage to get up on the stage and to say what you got to say. But just generally speaking, like very, very broad, I would just say, I'm just hungry for dangerous ideas. I'm hungry for risky, challenging, dangerous. I'm trying to think, what was the last dangerous show you saw? One where you went and you were like, oh my God, what a, like, you could feel it shaking underneath you. I've got one in mind personally, but what was the last one?
This is really fucking sad because I can't even think of one.
We've got one.
You go first, and I'll think.
To one. Where was it? Was it in Theatre Works?
It was the Theatre Works in St Kilda, yeah.
And this was an outrageous production called The Back Eye, and basically, so an adaptation of the Greek play, and it was done by this loose woman who I think had some sort of association with was it like a school, an all girls school or something. And so it was a late high school production, and they had this giant, like, it was like, it's hard to describe, just fragments come to me, and they had like this giant head that appeared on stage.
Wasn't it a mouth with a tongue?
Mouth with a tongue, and all the girls, it was so wildly inappropriate. All the girls were just running around like in states of undress and gyrating and like just like There was
It was like a sick demonic video clip. Really, was what it was.
but it was sort of like it had like Larry Clark, like kids and bully like elements into it as well, because it was so edgy. It was like the sort of, if it was a film, Margaret Pomerantz would have loved it. You know what I mean? And it was colourful, and we'd had walkouts. People were just like, it was the most shocking thing I'd seen in a long time. Like I was just watching it going, how did she get this? How did this get made? This is so like this is off the chain. It was crazy.
I'd
Like,
say you had
I
a
high
top
clapped for this
tier.
one.
Yeah, top tier. Oh, you did you?
I did the high clapping.
Was it a genuine
Definitely.
one? Yeah.
yes, that deserves high clapping for sure.
Well, that's what theatre should be. If people are fucking walking out, like, whew, yeah. Oh, well, you're talking about dangerous ideas of, you come to my show. Oh, I'm going to pump it up. I'll pump it up and just say, yeah.
Well, go for it. Like, I think that. I mean, what do you think? I mean, you've got no choice, really. Like, I mean, Ricky and I have been in the doldrums for a few years now about art because, we've done some theatre and everything. We've come across the same problems that you have, and it's been really dispiriting and really awful. And you sort of just get encircled by rather mediocre mean girls and boys, and who are all colluding to sort of keep you out. I know what that sounds like, but and therefore you the only way through is to smash through and to do dangerous work. I mean, you just got no choice.
Yeah, and I think I feel hopeful for the future. I think people are slowly starting to realize that, yeah, these ideas are crazy. There's an organization in America, they're called Fair in the Arts. But they sort of elevate more liberal values like diversity in thought and humanism, looking at each other in individuals. And I've connected up with a few of them. There's no one here so far. I'm still, look at me. I seem to be the only one, but I don't really know anyone else who thinks like this in the arts world. So if you're out there,
we should should start the Fair in the Arts chapter here. I don't know. I feel like we should get involved.
Oh, so do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Fair?
I reached out to Fair
you
years
said
ago.
chapter. Yeah.
Like to ask if there was an Australian one, and they said no.
I did the same thing. Yeah.
And I went, oh.
Well, I'm almost convinced that most actors and people making theatre, like the theatre is an excuse just to have a good time and to have the dinner parties after the rap and to
Have a roll.
Have a mulled
sack.
wine, a bit of hacky sack, like that. It's more of a social thing rather than a making of the art, And I've been in situations where ludicrous stuff happens, like working on this theatre show that mildly references fishing, or the guys are fishermen, but there's not really any fishing in the show. But and then the organisation organises a weekend away for cast and crew to go fishing and to stay at this fucking cabin somewhere.
Ricky didn't go.
I'm like, I didn't go. And I was not.
Sign me up.
I think they didn't care much for me after that because I was seen as not a team player or something. But I was just interested in doing the work, making good sound design and good music, and then going home and being with my family.
But we can't do inappropriate flirting.
Well, that's the other thing.
We can't
We've had the whole hashtag Me Too movement, but I saw so much inappropriate like flirting and people that like had partners outside of the theatre too, and it was just kind of an excuse to, I don't know, like almost have cosplay a second girlfriend or boyfriend or something. It's weird.
Yeah, their behaviour doesn't match what they're verbally stating a lot of the time, and I could say the same with religion. Always bring it back to religion.
But
say one thing, but
at least in religion, they accept
there is a moral standard, and
there's a standard that that they're aspiring to, and they accept the fact that they're all sinners. Whereas
with the arts, well, that's what I mean. How I can say I can hang out with people who think homosexuality is a sin, but I can't seem to have a conversation with people that just because I have a different view of gender.
I think maybe the distinction we need to make in the arts is not whether, forget politics. It should be whether you're interesting or not. And if you're boring, how about you can go and fuck off? And because you shouldn't be in the arts. And that, I think that's a better distinction, because isn't that fair enough? Everyone in the arts is interesting. Like if you're in the arts, and if you're boring, then you're probably political. You probably think you're edgy, but you're really actually very mainstream in the arts. Like
You're
to be
basic.
frank, some of the stuff in the Fringe Festival, it should be called the Sydney Mainstream Festival. From some of the stuff I've seen, I was like, come on now, that's not fringe. That's not very fringe, is it? If Dan Andrews is talking about it, then it ain't fringe. So it's I just feel like that's probably a better distinction. And I know that sounds brutal, but you know what? The arts, Melody, what do you think? I know you seem like a really caring person, but do you think the arts is there should be so many participation trophies? I mean, everyone should be able to do what they want, but at the end of the day, the arts, let's be real, it's an elite sport. This is an elite sport. It's show business. And if you got to get bums on seats, I don't care whether it was 1,600 or you got to get bums on seats. I mean, we should let people play around the edges, but it's got to be edgy enough to bring people in.
Yeah, but that doesn't suit them. I mean, it's got to be a quote unquote safe space for them. So no, this. Yeah, it's
a prohibition, a space of prohibitions.
I mean, look, there's some truth to that. No homophobia, no sexism, no racism, no. But I think just when it's listed off like that, it's like it should just be a given. Like, but then maybe that's a backlash to people that have been, I don't know, racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever. I mean, yeah, like I said, the intention is there. It's a good intention, but it's just been overcorrected so much that it's just so alienating, and it's insular. It's an insular environment, and no one wants to go in there because of that.
Now, we've got a couple of questions left. Do you have to run? Do you have to race?
No.
Okay, just checking, because I never want to keep going, and then people go, like, we've had people go, I have to go right now, and it's like,
yeah, close the laptop and they're gone.
So anyway, because we wanted to ask you about your podcast as well.
Oh, yeah.
So which is a whole other deal. So talk to us about your podcast. Why did you start it, and what are you trying to explore?
Well, I think, because what we've been talking about is the alienation, right? Feeling like I don't connect with any of these ideas in the arts. So I was actually listening to podcasts that opened my mind up. I think the first podcast that I really got into was Barry Weiss, honestly. Yeah. And then this expands us out to the sort of heterodox world, right? So we're it's a countercultural ideas that just opened my mind, and I'm like, that's why. Or Jordan Peterson, like that. I'm like, that's why this idea doesn't make sense because of this.
I am going to go clean my room.
Or like the feminist movement was just, it's so they pluck all these ideas out without taking into consideration, like I said before, the idea of privilege. We're not acknowledging all these other ideas. So being in the arts, I was like, these ideas don't make sense. And then listening to these intellectual thinkers, I was able to understand why. And then to start the podcast was just to, I can listen to podcasts. Why don't I curate my own and start talking about these ideas that don't make sense, or that it's sort of counter to the mainstream narrative. I question, I do talk a lot about being gay and Christian on the podcast as well. It's just another avenue to get myself out there, get my story out there, and create. Right, I said.
Does anyone in the arts know you have this podcast?
I don't think so. Nah.
And they don't ask because they're constantly talking about themselves anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think I do. I mean, there's one coming up. I interviewed this trans guy. It's called The Offensive Tranny. So he's like, not the mainstream. He calls himself transsexual, not transgender. So it's like I'm scared to put that out there. Or I interviewed this gender critical feminist. Actually, you guys have had her, Holly Lawford Smith.
Yes.
I thought people would go ballistic, but they didn't.
She's Kiwi.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
She's a minority. She's
That's
a minority.
what I was thinking.
Not
I was
a Kiwi.
like, another Kiwi. Taking our jobs.
But I don't know. I think maybe the environment in New Zealand was more insular. I think over here, since it's bigger, like there's more people here. I mean, my experience in the arts in Australia is much better than my experience in the arts in New Zealand. I mean, I'm sure you saw that like Posey Parker thing, and I knew half of those people. Like, I'm just like, fucking hell.
I was watching it live. The Melbourne one, Ricky, you were at.
I was there.
Did you see the Nazis?
I did, yeah. They walked past me, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know who they were
That's
until
intense.
I had no idea. I
Yeah.
thought they were Antifa or something.
But it's people that I used to be friends with that would say like, "Oh yeah, fucking TERFs, fucking this," and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's not what's going on. Like, how can we even have a relationship?" Um, so to sum up your question, actually, I think people in the arts do know that I'm doing the podcast. But like, yeah, it's another avenue to create and explore ideas that haven't been able to discuss in the arts, or I haven't created anything in a while. So now I can take these ideas that I'm exploring in the podcast and YouTube back into the arts and see what people say.
That's great. And it's called, just for our audience, it's called You Know I, is that right?
That's my podcast, yeah, but
Yeah.
I think my YouTube's just Melody Rachel.
And is there any specific episodes or specific sort of, I hate to say the word lessons because it's not an after school special, but like specific ideas or concepts that have come out of it that you've mulled over the time?
I did one with a guy, his name's Angel Eduardo, and he's actually part of Fair in the Arts. And we were just talking about how to be compassionate to people without being subjugated by their ideas. And I've just been mulling over that because it's like, the pronoun people, right? Like some of them are lovely, some of them horrible. Yeah. And they use it like as a power thing, like use my pronouns. But then some of them are just like these little fairy people that go to like festivals and I just want to give them a cuddle. And but yeah, he said it's when we criticize these ideas, people are connected. People think we're criticizing them and not the idea. So I'm still trying to work out like, yeah, how can I be kind and compassionate when I think these ideas are so bad, but I don't think the people are bad. So I'm keen to have more of those sort of conversations.
Well, that just reminds me of Peter Boghossian's book that he did with James Lindsay called How to Have Impossible Conversations.
Yeah, I've read it.
He talks about similar things where, if you do criticize the belief, it's instantly taken personally as you're criticizing the person. And he's got all these different tactics of how you have a conversation about opposing views or difficult topics and still sort of maintain civility and actually move the conversation forward.
We've got to hook you up with Peter's protege.
We do.
Reed Nicewonder. So Reed is also from the arts. He's American, and he was actually at the Sydney Let Women Speak Day. He was set up doing a street epistemology there. And I walked past him with my baby, and I was too frightened to engage. And
Peter was there as well, right? Peter Boghossian was there.
He was in Sydney, but was he at the thing? I don't know. I think I definitely know Reed was there. And we did a show with Reed, and yours is going to come out before his, but it was the scariest and the most rewarding show we've done possibly. Very different. Basically, we just did an hour of like he just ran us through street epistemology, and he took the example we went through was should there be, the claim was that there should be that public bathrooms should be
gender neutral.
No, was it gender neutral? Or was it they should be
unisex?
No, but they should be divided based on sex.
Right. Yeah.
That was the claim, and then we had to work through it. And he's a total master at this, and I think you got to keep doing it. I think he's had 10,000 of these conversations, and you can't just do it once, and you can't just read the book. Unfortunately, you have to go through the process, the horrible process of having your claims and your ideas tested. And there's nothing worse than someone saying, "So, Melody, what? And why do you think that?" Or what? And you go, "Oh God." Oh, don't ask me that, please. Don't ask me that. I read it in an Atlantic article. What you want to say. So you've got to sort of then run through the whole thing. It was amazing. I think you guys would have a riot.
Oh man, I would love that. Yeah.
I'll hook you up.
Well, Melody, we're fast running out of time here, so we'll start our descent. But we do have a final question that we ask all of our guests, and we'd like to know what you're reading right now.
Like 10 books that I've read. Yeah,
the blurb of.
Yeah, I'm reading a book called Scattered Minds by, forgive me if I mispronounce his name, Gabor Mate. Mate? Okay, there you go. Because it seems like everyone's got. seems like everyone's got ADHD today, and I'm just like, what's going on? So, yeah, scattered minds.
Yes, I'm fascinated by that guy. He comes up in my feeds a lot, and he's got one of these. Maybe I haven't got into him yet because he's always looking at me like with this look of like I know more than you. Have you seen that look he's got? He's just kind of like. But I think
Well, he probably does know more than you.
He definitely does. That's the awkward thing, and so I think I'm going to read Scattered Minds and get that out. Well, Melody, we'll give you the final word. Tell us. How can people get tickets to the show? Where can they go? And also, where can they find you online?
So my handle is Melody Rachel K on Instagram and Twitter. And then for YouTube, it's just at Melody Rachel. And my solo theatre show is called Demo, and it's opening on the 19th of September at 7:30 p.m. at Erskineville Town Hall. You can get tickets at the Sydney Fringe website. Just type in Demo. Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. All right.
Awesome.
Good luck with the show. What do they say? Chookers.
Chookers, they do.
Yeah.
That's an Australian thing. I only heard it when I first moved up here, but it's been
means.
really awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the New Flesh podcast. If you like our work, please consider rating us on Apple Podcasts or even writing us a review. It really does help the show reach a wider audience. We'll be back with another episode next week. Until then, long live the New Flesh.